Welcome to Candid Conversations. I am Kelly Finner, the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for the Baltimore County Police Department and your moderator for this conversation. The purpose behind this forum is to engage in conversation that has the potential to enrich and broadens one's cultural awareness, as well as strengthen community relations with law enforcement. I'd like to thank today's guests for taking the time to participate in this conversation. Our guest today is Dee Spriggs, a sworn law enforcement officer with the state of Maryland. Dee, could you please give us a brief statement explaining your why? And when I say why, I just mean why you agreed to be a part of today's conversation.
Well, today, to be part of today's conversation was a very difficult decision for me to make to tell my story and my journey. But I've decided that if my journey can help at least one person make a positive, conscious decision to change their life, and I'm willing to answer any questions to help them along the way.
Thanks, Dee. And I guess I failed to mention that our conversation today will be focused on, I'll say, as we celebrate the month of October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, today's conversation will be focused on the support people for those suffering and battling through breast cancer diagnosis as well as treatment. So, Dee, can you share your story as a support person?
Well, as a support person, unfortunately for me, I walked that journey three different times. My mom had breast cancer twice in 2017 and 2021. My sister also had breast cancer twice in 2017 and also in 2021. My daughter at 30 was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2019, late part of 2019. So my journey was a rough one because when you find out that your child had breast cancer, the first thing you do as a mother is say, I wish it was me. With that being said, my daughter was a fighter and she's a survivor. We are actually 2 years strong right now. I used to say that she's 2 years 2 years clean. And she was like, don't say 2 years clean, man. That make it sound like I'm clean from something else. So I'm saying clean from cancer. But it was a rough journey and we made it.
How did that diagnosis of your daughter, your mother, and your sister affect you personally and professionally?
So personally, it was a shocker. Like at the beginning, like in 2000, I mean, in 1998, 99 is when me personally started having my issues with my breast, but nothing, just biopsies and things like that, no cancer diagnosis. So I was really advocate to my parents and my siblings to get breast cancer checked for mammograms and things like that and check their breasts regularly. My sister found hers, and when she found hers, it motivated everybody else to do what they were supposed to do. And that's when we found out about my mother. My mother's was easy. She, we, so people make different decisions. And when my mother had hers, my mother's decision was to just have a lumpectomy and do nothing else. My sister, on the other hand, her journey was a little different. So I want to say that this journey for me, with all three of my close family members, each journey was different. Each journey took a different path. So I understand it a little better from everyone. Whereas my mother just had a lumpectomy, my sister had to have a mastectomy, and then she followed through with radiation. And my daughter had to have radiation and chemo. So that's why I say everybody's journey is different. Even though they're close together, they're they're different. With my daughter, it was the hardest because I promised my daughter I would be there for her every step of the way. And then COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, I was there for her first three treatments, sitting by her, holding her hand, having conversations, distracting whatever you needed to do, giving her popsicles. So it's a long journey. It's not just you go sit and have chemo. Chemo has a lot of effect on your body. And me sitting there with my daughter was very, very hard. But we made it through it. Then COVID hit and they said, you no longer can go and sit with your daughter. So the good thing about it is the place where she had her treatment had like a big bay window where the people who were receiving treatment could look out. And the nurses were kind enough to put her on the bottom on the bottom layer where I can stand outside the window where she was. And that's how we did the last 5 or 6 treatments of hers, of me standing outside the glass window, looking in, talking to her on the phone, talking through the nurses through the phone. So in the rain, in the snow, whatever, I was standing out there, letting my daughter do her treatment and letting her know that I'm still going to be there for you. She's a survivor. We had to go through the process of radiation after that. And with the job, it was, I had very supportive people around me at the job. Very supportive people. My boss was very understanding because my child had to go to nation every single Monday. So to go to your job and say, I need every Monday off for the next 6 months, you have the time, put it in, you can get it. But the position I was in allowed me to do that as well. I will say that. Um, so I would try to make up my work on Monday. Like I knew I was going to be off on every Monday. I would come in on like a Saturday and or Sunday and have everything prepped for Monday, or on that Friday stay a little late to get it done. So that journey was a little difficult at first. Um, FMLA was an issue, believe it or not. I applied for FMLA and halfway through the process, I was told, "Oh, you can't get FMLA for your daughter." So I had to go through that whole process of informing people because a lot of people don't know, even in them in them positions, don't know what you can and cannot do. So I had to do the research, send it to them, and say, "Hey, I'm entitled, and this is why I'm entitled," and da 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 da. So that came through, and we moved forward. But I'm just saying, if it would have been difficult if I wasn't allowed to be there for my daughter every Monday because I would have figured out a way. I would have done it, even if I was told not to be honest. So that's why I say I had the support at work. I had the support at home. We have a very close family, so it kind of was like everybody's walk.
Yeah.
But I thank the people that I work with because dealing with your child and everybody around you that's going through it, you need that extra family. So when I went to work and I was going to, I had a few, I'm not saying my whole job, but I had a few that would come and check on me just out of the blue, come in there. And sometime I would go down the office and shut the door. I'm like, I can't do this and cry. And then I come out and feel better. So I do thank those who was there and still who support me. And it's so funny that some of the people that you wouldn't expect to have that compassion for what you were going through were there. I looked up and people would say, "Hey, how you doing today? And how's your daughter?" And people that I didn't even realize knew what was going on with my child because I didn't broadcast it, but they were genuinely concerned about her journey, you know.
Did their support helping make it better for you being away from your daughter when you had to come back to work?
Yes, it did, but you don't want to leave your child. So I had to, it was difficult for me to try to balance to while I'm at work to be able to focus on work.
Hmm.
That was the difficult part. The difficult part was while I'm at work and thinking about making appointments, thinking about needing to do this, needing to do that. So that part was really hard. That part was hard to stay focused, but I had a lot of people who I want to say, what word should I use? Balanced it out.
Okay.
My checkpoints, like I would get emails, don't forget you got to do this. Don't forget to do that. And I didn't take that as, why are they doing it? I was like, whew, thank you. I forgot. So yeah, yeah, thinking about that, yeah, it was a lot of that. It was a lot of, and then I had a lot of people, friends that would say, I don't know how you do it. I don't understand how you can come in here every day and do what needs to be done because I do realize that what I was going through was personal. And at the end of the day, I still had a job and I still had to maintain my job. And yeah, I thank those emails. I thank goodness for those emails of dotting I's and crossing T's.
Yeah.
Trust but verify. So everybody trusted for me to do what I do because I do it. But I had a few people that was making sure by verifying that I did it. And I was
Yeah.
glad of it because, yeah, it was difficult. And it was difficult leaving her. Like Mondays, we would go to treatments and Tuesdays would be the day that she was feeling sickly.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that was very difficult. Like I know that she was home and she wasn't feeling well, and I would call and check on her. And my mom would be there every Tuesday. I leave out the door in the morning. My mom's coming in the door. So
Yeah.
and yeah, so I had a good support system because if I didn't have a good support system at home, um, I wouldn't have been able to work. And if I didn't have a good support system at work, I wouldn't be able to maintain home so well. So it was good for me. It was
Wonderful.
it was good. But I also do know that people that have got like, so I have talked to people since, especially young females at the job. I stress to them how important it is to get mammograms and to self breast checks and things like that. And then talking to them, some of them have had similar journeys with other family members, but they didn't share it. I don't,
Hmm.
but when I was so open with mine, I just realized that so many people, the young females, and I always tell the guys too, you guys got to get checked as well. So I had to educate them as well. But a lot of them have walked a similar journey of relatives, parents, and aunts, and things like that. So they were aware of breast cancer, but you never know the effect it has on people.
Right. Earlier you mentioned that you started going through some issues yourself personally regarding breast cancer. What was that like for you?
So I started having lumps in my breast early on. Like I said, like 98, 99 is when I first had my first biopsy. And so from that time period all the way up until I made my decision, I was going to the doctors every 6 months to see about my breasts because I had, as they said, dense breasts and cystic breasts, and so I would have to go. At first, it started off every year, but when I got older, the more cysts, it became every 6 months. And then I want to say, like in 2010 or so, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I stopped going. I just stopped going to see about my breasts, and then I found a lump that didn't go away again. And then I said, okay, it's time for me to start going back to see what was going on with me. So when I started that journey, it's nothing like holding your breath, waiting for the results of those tests. And I was doing it every 6 months. I would go for some type of thing. So one 6 months, I would get a mammogram and an ultrasound. And then the next 6 months, I would get an MRI. So every 6 months for 2 or 3 days, I'm holding my breath to find out what the decision is. So to my surprise, to find out that everybody around me wound up having cancer and I didn't was a so yeah, let me say that I didn't have cancer at all, but I made some tough decisions. Tough to other people, but was easy for me, should I say it that way, um, to do. So it was very nerve wracking and it was so you would go to the doctors and they would find something and they would do a biopsy. And then you would have to take the next day off of work because in law enforcement you have to wear a vest. So it's not like you really couldn't do your job, but wearing the vest where the incision is used to rub, used to be sore, so you couldn't. So I would have to take off work, which of course, we get occurrences. So you would have to figure out. So what I used to do was when I knew I used to have to go, I would put in a personal day the day before. Like I would put in a day if I'm off on Thursday and Friday. So I will always try to schedule my exams on my 2 days off. And then if I couldn't get them for those 2 days, the next day I would have to put in for a personal day so I wouldn't get occurrence because I had to go. And I knew that when I came back, I couldn't wear the vest for at least a day because it was just too tender. So you have to, whereas though a person who worked in the office and did that, they could have just came back to work the same day or the next day and it would have been fine. But because as a law enforcement, you have to wear certain equipment, it wasn't that easy.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, they didn't used to make vests for us. We didn't have cups in our vests to fit the breast.
Mhm.
It was just a straight panel, just like the guys wear. So,
Mhm.
so that was another issue. But
So
overall, go
if
ahead.
you don't mind me asking, what was the ultimate decision that you ended up having to make?
Okay, so um, we had the genetic testing. So we didn't carry the BRCA gene. All the doctors thinks that it is a gene that we carry, but it's one that they have not identified yet. So I just want to say this that um, all of us went to different hospitals. So we all didn't go to the same hospital. We all went to different hospitals for our treatment. And so I had promised myself that whatever the outcome was with my daughter, that I would not go through the 6 month waiting period anymore. I was not going to do it to myself or to them. So at this point, I was actually, when I made the decision to get a double mastectomy, because I got a double mastectomy, um, it wasn't a tough decision for me. It was a tough decision for everybody else around me. And believe it or not, the people that I thought that would be more understanding and more open to it was the total opposite. My daughter, my mother, and my sister both were not for it. They all thought, well, let's just wait and see. I'm like, wait and see. Like, I'm thinking to myself, I just went through all this walk with y'all. No, I'm not going to wait and see because I had to explain I'm not scared of getting cancer because God is going to do what God is going to do. And I'm going to do the walk that God puts in front of me. But I also know them. And I knew that if I would not have gotten a double mastectomy and wound up with breast cancer, they will walk their journey all over again. Even though I'm the one that's walking it, it would be their walk. They would think about them, what they went through, because when I did it with my mother and my sister before my daughter was diagnosed, I walked the journey of my mother and my sister the whole time I was walking with my daughter. I thought about the compare. I compared. When mommy did this, she did that, and when Trina. So it was that I did not want them to go through. I didn't want my daughter to go through watching me suffer through breast cancer, or my mom for that reason. So also, when I actually went and got my double mastectomy, I lied to my mother. She didn't realize. It's funny now. It wasn't funny then because when I came out the surgery, she was heated. She didn't realize that I was going to go through with it. So I did tell her I was having surgery, but I didn't tell her I was getting a double mastectomy until it was over with. She's accepting of it now, but at the beginning she wasn't. Um, yeah, the closest people was against me getting my double mastectomy, and I kind of felt like, hmm, do they not understand my mindset? Like I am the primary caretaker of my daughter when she went through it, and my mother. They don't understand that each time I went to the doctors with them and had to follow up with myself, that it's a hold and breath thing. Like, is it going to be me next? So it was an easy decision for me, but it was hard for them. It was hard for
Now
them.
that was at home. How about work?
So at work, I am a very open person. I just, but that particular part of my life, I didn't share with a lot of people.
Okay.
A few of my coworkers knew that I was going out to get a double mastectomy. Um, the majority of them still don't like. So I had my double mastectomy January this year, and so also with that, with it's a process. So even though my daughter, my sister, my mother has had cancer and treated, and they're clear and free, it's still a process. It's still things that you still have to go through. Me and my daughter still have to go get body scanned, and she still has to get mammograms every 6 months for the next 5 years, and um, take. Well, my daughter decided not to. My daughter, my sister decided not to take it. But after you have breast cancer, they recommend that you take this pill to help reduce your chances of getting breast cancer again. And they decided not to do it. So that means that we have to be more alert of different things that go on with them. And so, me and my daughter just went to the doctors the other day because um, when you get radiation, it dries up your skin and tear down your skin, and then you have to wait till it builds back up. And something people don't know: if you get radiation in one location, you can't get it again in that location. So that is a decision, a very important decision a lot of women have to make when they have breast cancer. Do they get a mastectomy or do they get a lumpectomy if it's a choice? Because if they choose not to and their type of cancer reacts better with radiation, if they happen to get radiation in that, cancer in that breast or can, they can't go back and get radiation, which I
Wow.
didn't know until until we start walking this journey. But and I still have to have a follow-up surgery. So at work, um, it was funny that I had planned it, and it takes a while for them to get you in. So my surgery was planned for January, but before January came, a lot of things took place within the job. So I didn't. It was worrisome because a lot of changes took place, and I'm coming back to this job, and the people that was my supervisors are no longer my supervisors, so I kind of wanted to get back to let the new people know that I have a good work ethic and I'm going to be here and I can do my job. And I'm thinking like, oh, I'm off work all this time and they don't know, and I need to get back to work because I need to. It yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And so when I got back to work, I was on light duty because with the double mastectomy, I couldn't wear the vest. I couldn't wear the gun belt because of the type of surgery I got. My uh, abdomen was scarred, so
Mhm.
I couldn't do, I couldn't wear the full uniform. I didn't have the strength to do the full job. So it took me, I think I was on light duty for about 2 months,
Okay.
maybe 2 months. I was at light duty 2 months and I went to physical therapy and I did all of that. And so you always are self conscious. I wasn't that type of person, but I will watch what I put on, making sure you couldn't see, that type of stuff. And and it uh it was difficult. It was difficult coming back to work.
Yeah.
It really was difficult coming back to work. And I didn't think it would be, but it was. It was difficult coming back to work. Um, just thinking of like, okay, going to the range and qualifying for the range, and did this decision, will it hurt my scoring, and will I be able to hold a gun, and it just all of that. And then when you go through in service, what you know about in service and defensive tactic, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this, and then in the back of my mind, I'm like, is this going to stop anything? Because in law enforcement, you have to get physical, where you in most jobs you don't.
Mhm.
So in law enforcement, when you make this decision, and I didn't think it through, to be honest, because I didn't think about going back to work and having to fight or wrestle or shoot. None of that came into play until after I got back to work, and I'm like, oh, I got to go to range. Oh, I got to go defensive tactic. Oh, I got to
Mhm.
do. I'm like, whoa, okay. So am I going to be able to do this stuff? Like I
Mhm.
didn't think about it until you actually get there and you have to do it. But fortunately for me, I had people there that I could have these candid conversations with. Like,
Wonderful.
okay, so I got to go to range, and I'm kind of on the fence of how it's going to go. Okay, well, you know what? Go out there on Thursday and do some practice shooting. Go, get up in the morning, go head out to the range. I'll let them know you coming. Do some practice shooting to get yourself built back up. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, that
Did
type
that
of
help
thing.
reduce some anxiety for you?
Absolutely, because when I went out there, they was like, "Well, what you was worried about it for?" I'm like, yeah, it did. It
Mhm.
helped because it's like, okay, they're gonna put things in place to make me feel comfortable about what I'm doing.
That's
Before
wonderful.
I go back to work full time, they're gonna make sure that I'm up to snuff, and they're gonna give me the tools to make sure that I'm up to stuff. So to be honest, I was like, I want to go da 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 da, and the person that was here to train was like, nope, not yet. You ain't been back here long enough. Get yourself together first. I was mad at him for about 2 days when they don't say that to me because I wanted to do, and he was like, no, you just got back last week, and you're probably not even supposed to be back. We're gonna take this slow, and we're gonna give you the tools. So when you come back, you're gonna be on point and ready to go. So I was glad that that person was a friend as well. But I'm glad that he was like, hold up. And I was like, if you didn't know what went on with me, if I wouldn't have been talking to you, you wouldn't have knew what's going on with me, and you would let me go do it. He's like, well, I do know what's going on with you, so we're not doing it. I'm like, okay. So it kind of worked out, but yeah, I didn't think about any of that. Like I just thought about my personal thing, get this, come back on light duty, get yourself together and go back. But I didn't actually think about all the physical stuff that you have to do in law enforcement, that having this procedure kind of, you got to move slow. You can't
Yeah.
just rush back into it. But I just hope that people who are in law enforcement that goes through my journey or have kids and have to go through my journey have the support that I had at my job, because it makes a big difference. The
Yeah.
anxiety level, knowing that people have your back and your anxiety level will go down, which makes everything works a little better in your favor. But if I didn't have them, it wouldn't have been good. It wouldn't have,
I
because I would
like,
have. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, I like how you said that the support at the job was fundamental in your recovery,
Yes.
but also knowing what accommodations you're going to need upon returning to work. Like you said, when you made this decision, this life altering decision to save your life, you weren't
Mm-hmm.
thinking about my career going forward. Am I going to
Nope.
be able to wear a vest? Am I going to be able to do defensive tactics? So the fact that you even mentioned that, I'm hoping that any other woman that's in law enforcement takes heed to that and can put that in their plan. So going
Yes.
forward, they're making the best decision, not just for them personally, but if they plan on continuing their career in law enforcement. I truly appreciate you even mentioning that. Thank you so
But
much.
not, but not only, because you're going to have to make what's best for your life overall, but make plans ahead of time for this aspect of your career. Because I didn't. So now that you know that you're going to be weak physically, like you're not going to be at full strength for a minute. So you need to know that, okay, when I come back to work, even though some days I was feeling good and then within a half a day I'm just drained. Just knowing that you're going to be physically drained is something that you should put in place. So instead of, like I did, I should have started off doing half a day instead of coming in there 4 days, because you're home and you're laying around and you're getting up when you feel like it and you sitting down and laying down when you feel like it. But when you come back to work, and you say, "Oh no, I'm here on light duty and I'm going to be full day," and you realize that constantly moving throughout the day, by the time 1 o'clock comes, you're drained. So you need to put that into play. Like, okay, when I come back, I need to start off light duty, or because I know that I'm going to have to build my strength up for defensive tactic and shooting. Maybe I need to talk to the job about, hey, when I come in, can I go and do this, or can I have somebody to help me with this? So that, you see what I'm saying? So you're right. They do need to think about it, because I really didn't. I
Yeah.
did not. That didn't cross my mind.
Well, it sounds like your support with your professional family
Yes.
was a lot stronger than your biological family because your biological family didn't want you to make that the ultimate decision.
Well, no, they didn't want me to make that ultimate decision. My professional family found out after I had, like, okay, y'all, check this out. I'm going out from this time to this time, and this is what I'm gonna do. And they know once I get my mind made up, it doesn't even, there is no talking to me. Once I gave my family, except for my mom, my surgery date, everybody was good. Like, my daughter was like, "Well, we need to get," so she's online, and you need this kind of pillow to lay on, and you need this, and you need that, and you need the button down, and the doctor's appointments, following the doctor's appointments afterwards. Um, she was there every appointment, her and my husband, fighting to which one get to go in there with me, because it's still kind of COVID, and but at the end, my doctor was like, "Y'all both can come in." So it was, and it's also, if somebody takes this journey of deciding to get a double mastectomy or having to get a double mastectomy, please do your research, because research is important when you make that decision. Because I thought I did all my research and I didn't. The things that I found out wasn't very detrimental, but it was like, oh, if I would have thought about this, then I would have known. Like, I have a bed. My bed is the uh, adjustable bed. That was the best thing that I could have had, because you can't move. You physically are dependent on people when you come home for like the first week. Everybody said I was strong. I don't think I was strong, but even in the hospital, all I needed was a leave and Tylenol. Just give me some Tylenol. I didn't want any hard drugs, and the pain wasn't that bad to me. My sister, she had hers first. She had me petrified. I was scared I was going to be in so much pain. I was like, oh my goodness, am I sure I want to do this? But that's why everybody's different. It
Yeah.
wasn't very painful for me. It it was very painful. But some people, like, I'm in a group um that you can talk candid about the process, and they give you good information, and they give you the support when you wake up in the middle of the night and you like, oh my goodness, You can go on. It's through Mercy Hospital, and you can go on to there, and somebody's always woke, and somebody's always going to answer your question. And no matter how dumb you think the question is, there's no dumb question.
Yeah.
All of the answers are somebody has gone through it, and that's why they can answer the question that you have. But yeah, I just appreciate my professional family and my personal family, because if it wasn't for them, it wouldn't have been this easy journey. I'm not saying it was easy, but it wouldn't have been stress free,
Yeah.
because once I told them and everybody was on board with it because they know me, it was stress free. And like I said, even with my professional family, when I was making decisions based on what I wanted, I was told, no, you got to wait. That's not how it's going to go, because this is not going to be the best outcome from you if you do it this way. I wanted to come back to work 3 weeks after the process. My husband's like, oh, no, you ain't going back to work. Mm-mm, you staying right here. So we had to negotiate. Me and him negotiated on when I can go back to work. But yeah, you you do. But I just say anybody in law enforcement that makes that decision to do it, or have to do it, not because of cancer, whatever, make sure they make the accommodations at work.
Yeah.
Make sure they let them know. Um, but that's funny, because people who makes this decision don't necessarily want everybody to know their business.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that is a difficult thing right there, because you don't want everybody to know your business, but you're going to need that support within the job to help you through your journey.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're going to need that support, because you know making decisions like even putting back on the vest. So I didn't know whether the vest is going to fit, how snug it was going to fit. Do I need a new one? So you have to think about that, because after the surgery, you may have larger breasts or smaller breasts, which your vest is not going to fit properly. So
Right.
you have to go through all of that of figuring out. So, like, have that conversation. Hey, how long does it take to get a new vest? This is the process I'm getting ready to go through. So if it takes 4 weeks to get a vest, then I need to order a new vest now. You get what I'm saying? So
Right. But ordering a new vest, you really can't do that because you don't know your size. So you would really have to essentially
no,
wait till you come back.
yeah. Well, they don't know your size, but most of the surgeons will tell you you're going to probably be between. They can give you a good estimate.
Hmm.
But you're right. The best fitting one is to wait, but that's another thing. So therefore, you're going to have to wait however long it takes your agency to get your new vest. So
Right.
you can't do it like the first 3 months after surgery, because you're still swelling and it's still not your correct size. So
So there are a lot of
it's a
factors to
lot,
take into consideration when it comes to,
and we don't.
right.
Right? Yeah. Because I didn't even really take in consideration the vest issue until after surgery. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And then I tried my vest on. I'm like, this not fit so like it's supposed to. So I had a conversation, and we went in, and I got a new vest. And it took a minute. So by the time I actually was coming off of light duty, my new vest was coming in, so it worked.
Great.
So you know, but
You
it's
know,
been
you
amazing.
mentioned you started noticing and having to go to the doctor on a regular back in the 90s. If you could tell
Hmm.
your if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would that be today?
Continue with the continue with the process that the doctors had for me. I would not have taken that break. I would not have stopped going out of frustration of tired of going, because I realize now that it could have not been good. I'm looking at my mom and my sister and my daughter who wound up with it. What if I would have developed it during that time period and ignoring it because I don't want to be bothered? My daughter was diagnosed with stage 3 when we found out. Um, and you know, depending on the cancer, it can grow really quick, it can grow slow. But during those 3 or 4 years that I decided not to do it anymore, could have been very detrimental to my health. So I would have told my younger self, be very vigilant on what's going on with your body. Make sure that you check your children, because if I told my children from the beginning, to my girls, to make sure they do self-record examination, didn't follow up with it. I may mention it to them, hey, y'all know y'all need to do this. I would have been more on top of that so that when we found out about her, she wouldn't have been at stage 3. Hopefully, she would have been at stage 1. So I would say I would be a big advocate for women to do self checks, because that's what saved my daughter life, her self check. Because even when she went to the doctor, she went to advanced radiology, and they said, "Oh, you're too young. We can't do that. You da 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 da." So she argued with them. My daughter's very vocal, like her mother. We did the mammogram, and they said, "We don't see anything." And she said, "I don't care what you don't see, I feel." And so she showed the tech, and then the tech called the doctor in, and then they wound up doing an ultrasound and found it. But yeah, you have to be your own advocate, and I definitely would have stayed on top of my girls doing their self checks.
Thank you, Dee. I appreciate you sharing your journey and being a part of Candid Conversations with the Baltimore County Police Department. And I am certain the warriors, thrivers, and survivors thank you as well.